Now we're going to take this motor and we're going to slide it up into its motor mount. First thing we're going to do is make sure this goes up through the slot correctly. Up there. And then we're going to put the topmost bolt in, which is this one here, but it comes from the left side of the bike. There's my hole. Right there. The cable's out of the way. And we're going to slide that bolt through. So now the motor's in place. Now I'm going to push down the motor battery connector. And I'm going to put the top battery mount in place. Just slides on top and presses down into those little holes, and now that's secured into place. The two screws go back on top of the battery mount. One. And two. Turn those down. Snug, not over tight. All right, now we're going to put the other bolts into the motor mount. Remember, this fender guard mounts here. There's two ways it can go. One is with these the raised part of it towards the right side or towards the left side. And if you hold it there, you'll notice that if it's towards the left side, it doesn't look right. So you put this raised part pointing towards the right. And you put that first bolt in place. It comes through. And then you put the chain guard in place and a nut on top of that. I'm not going to tighten it yet. Just going to put it in. Next bolt, same thing. I'm going to push the bolt through the hole, through the chain guard, and then the nut on top of that. Now the motor's secure. Now we're going to put the nut on the third bolt, but remember we have to put this chain guard mount, chain positioner in place. So I'm going to put the chain on the chain ring first, like that. Then I'm going to put this chain mount in place, like so. So the chain goes through there. Now I'm going to put the bolt on. Maybe. Come on, bolt. Oops. Okay. Now we're going to tighten up those bolts. 12mm socket, 12mm box hand wrench, the wrench on the left side, and I'm just going to put the socket on the bolt, tighten it up. Second bolt, same thing. Good and tight, not over tight. Now we do the third bolt, same way. Now this one, we've got to position this chain guard. So I'm going to take the chain guard and give myself an idea of where that needs to go. So I'm going to put the chain guard up in place. The front tabs interlock. There it is. And so I see we are just about exactly right with our upper chain guard. So that's where I want to keep it as I'm tightening it. Put the bolt back on, wrench back on, and I can see here, for reference, I'm watching this joint right there. I'm going to try to keep that in that orientation with my hand. I can move it with the nut and tighten it with, there we go. Now if I need to move it, I can do it with this nut on the back side. Now we're going to put the chain tensioning pulley back in place, and that mounts, this is threaded, that goes on the back side of this, and then there's just this Allen bolt that comes in and screws that down. Got to find the hole, and then it'll go in. Still haven't found the hole. Have to remove some of the tension on it. There we go. Now we got the hole. I'm going to just tighten that down. Nice and tight. All right, there's our chain tensioner. Now we put the motor pulley back on, loosen the chain tensioner, put the pulley on the motor, all the way on, snap ring, snap ring goes on there. And we push the snap ring on, make sure you hear the snap. Okay, there's the snap ring. Okay, now that we have the chain and motor pulley on, we're going to reconnect the motor. One large connector snaps together. That's it. Now we're going to stuff it back inside this bag, and if you remember before, this connector was sideways inside the bag. So we're going to put it back in the same orientation that it was in before, so that we make sure that it all fits inside there. This isn't always the elegant part of the process, but just got to push everything in back into the far end of this box or bag. And now put these little connectors in there as well. Keep everything out of the way of the water and rain. Alright, so they're all in there. Now we just stuff it back inside the frame. You want to make sure you don't push too far. You can feel on the back side, just make sure it doesn't push through so that it would interfere with the chainring moving around. That's set to go. Now we just want to connect this ground wire to the little grounding. Screw is out. Grounding wire goes behind the plastic so that it's touching the motor. And you'll be able to see the hole. Now we'll put the screw back in. Make sure it's lined up just right. And that screw, which is a tiny little guy, needs to go back in there. Plastic chain guards in place. This chain guard goes, there's a plastic catch here, which goes in this slot, and then another little plastic tab here, which goes in this slot. So the first thing we do is put the front slot in place, and then we get the second one in place. Now it's in the right spot. Go to the other side, screw it in. It's this coarse screw that just comes in from the back side here. There. Screws in place. Don't over tighten those, they're plastic. You don't want to overdo them. Now we've got the chain on the motor pulley. Make sure everything's correct there. I'm off down here, that's why. Make sure it's on the pulleys and that everything spins correctly and there's no interference anywhere. No interference there. Make sure the cables are out of the way. Everything looks good there, spins nicely. Okay, now the chain guard. Plastic tab here, plastic tab here. Those go in these recesses here. So you slide it forward, get it on those tabs, and then slide it backwards slightly, and it's in place. There we go. Screw on the top. Okay, now we're going to put the pedals back on. If you didn't mark which one was right and left, there is a mark on the back side of these pedals. One of them is marked with an R. This pedal here has an R. So that's our right pedal crank. That's going to go here. Bolt is going to go on. Okay. Left side is going to go on. Make sure you put them 180 degrees apart or it'll be a little difficult to pedal the bicycle. Nut goes on. Okay, and then with the 14mm bolt wrench, we're going to tighten those down to they're good and snug. Okay, there we go. And then we tighten the other side, and you are good to go. If there were dust caps, put those back on top of the bolts, protect them. And that is all it takes.